Jerry Jones publicly signaled that he was ready to spend, ready to push, and ready to close the gap between Dallas and true Super Bowl contention. On the surface, the front office did move. Transactions were made, names were added, and the roster was reshaped in key areas. But beneath that activity, a deeper question started to emerge. Because in the NFL, not all movement translates into impact. And for a franchise like Dallas, one that operates under constant national scrutiny, the difference between active and decisive can define an entire season before it even begins. The Cowboys have improved, but they haven't shocked anyone. And in a league driven by bold moves, that absence of a headline-grabbing acquisition has quietly raised doubts. The trade for Rashawn Gary, while undeniably valuable, did not carry the weight of a transformational shift. Giving up only a 2027 fourth-round pick makes it a smart deal, almost too smart. It's the kind of move that strengthens a roster without necessarily redefining it. And for a team that struggled defensively last season, incremental improvement may not be enough. Additions like Jalen Thompson and Kobe Durant provide depth and stability, but again, they don't alter the perception of the Cowboys as a team still searching for defensive identity. Even the decision to franchise tag George Pickens, while strategic, speaks more to maintaining structure than elevating ceiling. This is where perception begins to diverge from reality. On paper, Dallas has had a solid offseason. But in the context of championship expectations, solid can quickly become insufficient. The Cowboys are not judged by improvement. They are judged by transformation. And that's exactly why the conversation around the NFL draft has taken on such a critical tone inside league circles. Because if Dallas hasn't made its defining move yet, it may be about to. There's a growing belief across analysts and front offices that the Cowboys are positioning themselves not for a safe pick, but for a strategic strike. One that could reshape not just their defense, but their trajectory. And if that belief holds true, the entire narrative of Dallas offseason could flip overnight. Joel Klatt's latest mock draft didn't just place Caleb Downs at number 12 to the Cowboys. It introduced a scenario that has quickly gained traction across the NFL landscape. A scenario where one of the most complete defensive prospects in recent years slips just far enough for Dallas to capitalize. And if that happens, it wouldn't just be a good pick. It would be a defining one. Because Caleb Downs is not being evaluated as a typical safety prospect. He is being viewed as a foundational piece. The kind of player who doesn't just fill a role, but shapes the way an entire defense operates. At Ohio State, that's exactly what he did. The system didn't just include him, it revolved around him. The idea that a player of that caliber could fall outside the top 5 is rooted in one of the NFL's most controversial realities: positional value. Safeties, no matter how elite, are often pushed down draft boards in favor of quarterbacks, pass rushers, and offensive tackles. But occasionally, that bias creates opportunity. And that's where Dallas finds itself. Not in a position of desperation, but in a position of leverage. If Downs does slide, the Cowboys won't need to reach. They won't need to gamble. They'll simply need to recognize the moment and act. Klatt's message to Jerry Jones was direct: don't overthink it. And that advice carries weight, especially for a franchise that has historically struggled with balancing talent evaluation and strategic discipline. This isn't about finding value. It's about recognizing inevitability. Because when a player with Downs' profile becomes available at number 12, the decision stops being about fit. It becomes about vision, about understanding what your defense could become with the right anchor in place. And for a team that finished last season as one of the worst scoring defenses in the league, that vision might be exactly what Dallas has been missing. The question is no longer whether Downs is good enough. The question is whether Dallas is ready to make the move that defines its future. Caleb Downs' production alone would justify the hype. Across 3 college seasons, beginning at Alabama and culminating at Ohio State, he consistently delivered at a level that separates prospects from projections. His numbers are not just impressive, they are indicative of a player who impacts every layer of the game. But statistics only tell part of the story. What truly elevates Downs is how he accumulates those numbers. His instincts, his range, and his ability to read offensive intentions before they fully develop make him a rare defensive presence. He doesn't react, he anticipates. That's why comparisons to Buda Baker carry so much significance. It's not just about physical traits or playing style. It's about mentality, about a relentless approach to the game that turns consistency into dominance. Downs doesn't disappear in plays, he defines them. In modern NFL defenses, versatility is no longer a luxury. It's a requirement. And Downs embodies that versatility in its purest form. He can play deep, operate in the box, cover tight ends, and close space in ways that disrupt entire offensive schemes. He is, in every sense, a defensive multiplier. For Dallas, that kind of presence could solve multiple problems at once. Instead of patching weaknesses, the Cowboys would be installing a centerpiece. A player around whom adjustments can be made, schemes can evolve, and confidence can be rebuilt. Because defense is not just about stopping opponents, it's about dictating terms. And that's something Dallas has struggled to do. Too often, they've reacted instead of controlled, adjusted instead of imposed. Downs represents the opposite of that dynamic. He brings control. He brings structure. He brings identity. And in a league where elite defenses are built around difference makers, that may be the most valuable trait of all. If the Cowboys land Caleb Downs, the immediate impact won't just be statistical, it will be structural. Dallas defense, which has been criticized for inconsistency and vulnerability, would gain a central figure capable of stabilizing the entire unit. And in football, stability often precedes dominance. The presence of a high IQ safety changes how defenses align, how they disguise coverages, and how aggressively they can attack. With Downs on the field, Dallas would have the flexibility to become more unpredictable, more dynamic, more difficult to read. That matters more than ever in a league where offensive innovation continues to evolve at a rapid pace. Defenses that cannot adapt are exposed. Defenses that cannot communicate break down. Downs addresses both issues simultaneously. But beyond the tactical layer, there's a psychological shift that comes with adding a player of his caliber. Teammates play differently when they trust the system. Coaches call games differently when they trust their personnel. Confidence becomes contagious. And for a team like Dallas, one that has faced questions about toughness, discipline, and consistency, that shift could be transformative, not just in how they play, but in how they are perceived across the league. Opponents study tendencies. They exploit weaknesses. But when a defense gains a player who erases mistakes and creates disruption, those tendencies become harder to target. The margin for error shrinks. That's what Downs offers: margin control, game control, identity control. And if Dallas truly wants to move from contender to threat, that's exactly the kind of transformation they need. Block 5, the risk, the reward, and the defining moment. Every draft pick carries uncertainty. Even the most promising prospects must transition, adapt, and prove themselves at the next level. Caleb Downs is no exception. But what separates this situation is the balance between risk and reward, and how heavily it leans in one direction. If Downs reaches his projected ceiling, the Cowboys won't just have drafted a great player. They will have secured a foundational piece for years to come. A player who can anchor a defense, elevate those around him, and redefine expectations. And if he falls to number 12, the value becomes undeniable, not just in terms of talent, but in terms of opportunity. Because chances like this don't come often. Elite prospects rarely slip. And when they do, the teams that capitalize are the ones that think decisively. For Jerry Jones, this represents more than just a draft decision. It's a moment of alignment between ambition and execution, between what has been promised and what is ultimately delivered. The Cowboys have spent years building, adjusting, and searching for the right formula. They've had talent. They've had moments. But they've lacked the defining piece that brings everything together. Caleb Downs could be that piece. And if Dallas makes the move, if they trust the evaluation, trust the moment, and make the pick, this won't just be remembered as a good decision. It will be remembered as the moment their entire offseason changed direction. And possibly, the moment their future did too.